life is not a spectator sport. It's getting in, it's getting messy, it's getting dirty, it's learning what to do and what not to do. I really believe in possibility thinking. One of my favorite quotes is, where most people see problems, I see possibilities. Where most people see obstacles, I see opportunities.
How have you seen leaders navigate these waters of spirituality, bringing the best of themselves while making it safe and inclusive and inviting for others to bring the best of themselves?
It's evolving. We used to have a more autocratic, direct leadership style. We've seen that more prevalently. Late, we're not seeing the vulnerable, innovative, creative leader that we're going to see in the future, but it's shifting. I would say we probably score a C if we were to measure leaders' effectiveness in being able to navigate spirituality. I think many leaders avoid it or, quite frankly, don't believe in it.
Welcome to the Spirituality in Leadership podcast. I'm Andrew Cohn. Spirituality in Leadership is a platform for conversations with leaders at all levels about bringing our spiritual dimensions to our leadership, our teams, our workplaces, and all areas of our lives in order to achieve greater success and fulfillment and build and sustain healthier organizations. If you'd like to connect with me to talk further about these topics and or about individual or team coaching, leadership workshops, or team alignment, please go to my website, lighthouseteams.com. Enjoy the podcast. In this episode of the podcast, I speak with my longtime colleague and friend, Dr. Jim Smith Jr., in Philadelphia. Jim's a remarkable public speaker, trainer, educator, role model, just a remarkable man. Jim talks about his experience with his son as a teacher and the shifts he needed to make, relying upon what he calls his spiritual foundation. He talks about a beautiful story of learning across cultures, the power of asking questions, the power of curiosity. Jim teaches us a bit about something called possibility thinking. He talks about the need for authentic and vulnerable leadership in today's workplace and how, as he said, leaders can get dirty in these types of conversations, but it's needed. And as he said, leadership is not a beauty contest, it's needed. He talks about the power of conversation and how positive conversation creates safety. And each such conversation helps us make deposits, as he says so wisely, and the importance of leaders being vulnerable and opening up powerful conversations that therefore make deposits, build relationships, and shape cultures as well. He's a remarkable man. I'm so glad that he is part of the podcast. Enjoy.
Welcome, Dr. James Smith, my old friend and colleague. It's such a joy to have you with me on the Spirituality and Leadership podcast. How are you today?
I am doing fantastic, Andrew. The pleasure's mine. Thank you for creating this opportunity for us to chop it up.
Beautiful. Chop it up indeed, to scrimmage. So you are in your office in the Philadelphia area?
Right outside of Philly. I'm in Mount Laurel, New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
But people ask me, born and raised, I always say West Philadelphia.
West Philadelphia. Beautiful place.
Oh, yeah.
God, brings me back.
I was getting ready to say memories, huh?
Indeed. Absolutely. Great. So thank you for being here. I have shared a little bit about this podcast with you, but we haven't really had conversations about this. We know each other a little bit differently. So I appreciate the openness and the trust, and I'm excited to see where this might lead.
So am I.
So, well, one thing that I might ask you first is, what interests you about spirituality in leadership?
I believe with the numerous changes we've had over the past several years, that leadership has had to evolve as well. We're living and working in a very tense time, a very people-centric time. And I believe leaders should look into this and really spend time with spirituality so that they can enhance the quality of their leadership now, given, again, it's not even a new normal, it's a new now. It changes every day.
Beautiful. Could you describe, share a little bit about your journey and how you got to this place? Because I've known you through several iterations, incarnations, re-embodiments, a lot of appreciation and respect for all of them. So how did you get to this place of where you are with your current point of view about leadership?
As far back as I can remember, I always thought that there was something bigger than me, bigger than the universe, something that you can't wrap your arms around. There's a certain level of belief and consciousness that needs to be there. And I was always told I was an old soul, but I really spent a lot of time thinking about possibilities, thinking about what if. When you told me that's not going to work, I wanted to figure out why not. So I began to believe that there was something greater, bigger. At one point, I likened it to my religion. I'm Christian, Baptist, and I do know that some people are spiritual and not religious. So I get that. But I've always played with possibilities. And I, from a young age, believed in the law of attraction. What you focus on grows. And I live a life of being very positive, and I have used my spirituality beliefs to keep me motivated and keep me at peace during times when they weren't as peaceful as they could have been.
So your spirituality and religion for you has supported you. It's been something you can lean on. It's something that can hold you up, keep you up.
Absolutely. Time and time again. It's at a deeper level of consciousness. Things have not always been great, but when I'm thinking positively, 9 times out of 10, things work out for me. That's personal, that's professional. I would say everything is supposed to be what it's supposed to be, but I would say my greatest disappointment, I did not expect my son to be diagnosed as nonverbal and on the autistic spectrum. Didn't see that coming. I'm a speaker. I run my mouth for a living. I just knew when my little guy came around, when I was 44 years old, waited for a minute, that he would be mini James Smith Jr. 2.0. But that wasn't in the plans. I had to really be prayerful and thoughtful and just be still to work out that experience. And it wasn't until I changed how I showed up and stopped looking for my big guy to change how he's showing up that things began to get better. He's still the same. He's 17 now, but I'm the one that had to make the shift, where I shifted to focusing on what he could do and not on what he could not do.
And that's something that your spirituality and your foundation that way, does that word fit?
Yes.
Something that supports you.
Foundation was started a long time ago. My mother initiated it. My parents were divorced when I was 11, so I didn't have that father figure around other than going to church and seeing the pastor. And
that father.
Yeah. And other coaches in my life. But from a young age, my mother put the Bible on my lap and started teaching me about faith and belief.
And so how do you, when you interact with a lot of people, you speak with a lot of groups all over the world, you've taught, and you've taught me, and you've taught hundreds, if not thousands of people. How do you interact with them about ideas like this, knowing that people are coming from very different places? I mean, you're recently back from Asia. They don't know from Baptists. So how do you manage that so that you can be who you are and all of who you are, without drawing a line or building fences or walls or making people uncomfortable about it?
Andrew, I do a lot of listening. I do a lot of asking of questions. I'm big on Stephen Covey's tip, seek to understand before you seek to be understood. And I'm a learner. I'm a learner because I believe the more I understand you, the more I understand us, if there's going to be an us. I do not throw my beliefs, whether they are spiritual, religious, political. I focus on communication. I focus on the goal that we have set for each other. And I believe if you focus on the goal and not the person, you focus on the behavior and not the person, things should be a lot more harmonious. But we tend to take things personally, not professionally. But again, a lot of listening, a lot of talking, a lot of wanting to understand.
Beautiful. I'm curious to hear any story you might have where you can remember connecting deeply with someone from another culture or another spiritual practice or another tradition. I don't want to put you on the spot here, but I'm sure you've got stories, and I know you tell stories.
Plenty. Well. I have plenty. The one that just popped into my mind goes back to the early 90s, is when I was working full-time for a major organization, I won't give the name, and they had started their diversity initiative. And they wanted me to play a key role in the training, the content creation, and so forth. I didn't jump at it right away because I didn't want to be that Black guy who does diversity. And I thought their initial answers for why me were not accurate. And we finally got to the heart of that. But I remember going to a conference. It was called the American Association of Talent Development. American Association of Training and Development is now called the Association of Talent Development, ATD. And I said, I'm going to go to all the workshops that featured content on diversity. I'm going to be here for 3 or 4 days. I'm going to Diversity, Equity, Inclusion University. That was my thought. Remember, after the first day, getting back on the shuttle that was going back to the hotel, there was one other person on there. She was sitting toward the back. And I looked at her, made some eye contact, and realized she had a red dot right there. I assumed it had something to do with her religion and beliefs, and I didn't know what it meant. So, Andrew, I went back to her, introduced myself, told her that I was new to the world of diversity, and I'm looking to learn a lot this week at the conference. Would you mind telling me, what does the red dot, what does that mean, connote? Again, I'm attempting to learn everything I can. And she started laughing. She said, I can't believe this. We're in the same boat. I'm brand new too. I'm going to go to sessions during the conference to do the same thing. And I have a question for you. Should I call you Black or African American? Now, we sat on that shuttle bus going back and forth from a hotel to conference center for a good hour, just talking about our beliefs, asking questions, and just creating some great conversation. We stayed in contact for several years after that. But when you asked me what comes to mind, that was the first story that came to mind.
So I hear that story, and I hear about the power of curiosity and openness and non-judgment, just curiosity, just childlike curiosity. Please tell me your story. I want to learn.
And I think as children, we do a great job of that. But as we get older, we start creating stories for what's going to happen. So we don't ask those questions anymore.
Yes. And we're afraid that we're going to get it wrong, which, we're right. I remember watching, I think it was a comedian talking about, it's a good thing that if an adult were learning to walk, she would take a few steps and she'd fall down and she'd say, oh, I guess I'm not a walker.
That's it. That's it.
And kids don't know enough to be judging themselves, and they're able to stand up and keep going and just do this is what I'm going to do. I'm born to do this. I'm going to use these legs. I'm
reminded of, the zealous first grader, second grader raising their hand, ooh, 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 call me, ooh, 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 ooh. Now, as adults, we may do this. This might not be what you're looking for, but I'm going to take a stab at it. What? What happened to your ooh, ooh, ooh?
Well, and I know that part of your work, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but part of your work is all about bring me that ooh, ooh, ooh. Oh, yeah. That your organization needs it and the world needs it.
Yeah, life is not a spectator sport. It's getting in, it's getting messy, it's getting dirty, it's learning what to do and what not to do. I really believe in possibility thinking. One of my favorite quotes is, where most people see problems, I see possibilities. Where most people see obstacles, I see opportunities. I'm a law of attraction guy. The Matrix, one of my favorite movies of all time. Being able to see what others don't perceive exists. Mindset, consciousness.
So how have you seen leaders, because this podcast is focused on leaders at all levels, at work, in all kinds of work. That could be volunteer work, by the way. So how have you seen leaders navigate these waters of spirituality, bringing the best of themselves while making it safe and inclusive and inviting for others to bring the best of themselves, perhaps even when you don't have that luxury of time on the bus, or you don't have that luxury of one-to-one, and you need to assert yourself, and you may not know where other people in the room are coming from? How have you seen leaders navigate this space well?
It's evolving. We used to have a more autocratic, direct leadership style. We've seen that more prevalently. Of late, we're not seeing the vulnerable, innovative, creative leader that we're going to see in the future, but it's shifting. I would say we probably score a C if we were to measure leaders' effectiveness in being able to navigate spirituality. I think many leaders avoid it or, quite frankly, don't believe in it. There's still a style of this is what I do, or a style of follow me as I show you how it's done.
Mhm.
That's even evolving too because of the great resignation and many people working from home. Leaders really have to step into their vulnerability, their authenticity. They're wanting to listen to learn, not just to direct you left or right. It's a new day, but I still think, Andrew, that leaders are still struggling with it. When I did my research on authenticity, I was amazed by the number of leaders, senior leaders, who say, depending on where I'm at, who I'm speaking to will determine the degree of authenticity that I'll get to. Primarily with smaller groups, I'm more authentic. With larger groups, I'm more inclined to give the company line, company speak.
And when I hear you say that, I hear fear.
Yeah.
Is that how that lands for you as well?
That holds true for me. Big time fear. A fear of not having control, fear of ambiguity, fear of the unknown, fear perhaps feeling like they are an imposter. So now we're getting into imposter syndrome.
Mhm.
A lot of it, I believe, is cased with fear. We have to learn how to uncouple fear from ambiguity. People will lump them in together. But yes, I do hear fear.
Right. And as I hear you talk about the transition of leadership, and this notion of follow me, and I hear you say follow me, and then I think about what you said earlier about the difference between the person and the behavior, or the person and the goal. So, I wonder if we could talk about the distinction between follow me and my, and my personality and me as an individual versus let's go together towards this goal.
Yeah, the first example, I don't think it has lasting power. Yes, we can work for that narcissistic, tough drill sergeant boss for a period of time. After that working for that person because we have to, not because we want to, is going to wane. Where I believe the successful leader, and you can use your own definition of successful, is one that cares for the people that are in his or her care, is able to inspire and motivate and lift and create an empowering environment. I don't think an individual can empower someone. That person has to be self-empowered, but you can create an environment where people thrive and look for ways to be the best possible version of themselves.
So and I know you do this time and time again in your work, what do you do and what have you seen leaders do to invite that best from others? What brings them into the arena?
Looking to build and establish trust. I'm looking to be vulnerable, looking to enhance the relationships of their team members. And part of that will involve them sharing more of who they are, their mission, their personal beliefs, sharing when they fell down, because they're standing now, which means they use some sort of recipe to bounce back, or there was someone in their lives to help them bounce back. So I view it as a more authentic and a more vulnerable leadership style, where you're not coming across as the expert or perceived expert. And I'm reminded of Kurt Cobain's quote that says, "I'd rather be hated for who I am than loved for who I'm not." I believe that today's leaders, in stepping into their authenticity, will also step into other avenues of their life that can help them become that more empowering.
Right. I love that quote. I love that Kurt Cobain makes it into this conversation. I wouldn't expect that he would be the first, but here he is. So,
well, Andrew, as someone who has spent more years than I like to admit people pleasing, I really take that to heart now. I have torn up my president of the Philadelphia People Pleasing Society, got rid of it, no more subscriptions, but I spent a lot of time putting other people first. Their needs, their beliefs. And when I did not, I was met with conflict and consternation. So I turned into this passive aggressive guy who over the years eventually found the right life GPS. But yeah, I know what it's like to go along to get along, fake it till you make it, that I abhor now.
Do you think that and by the way, my hand is raised when you talk about that those people pleasing decades. Yeah. And I used to carry that card around at the PPPS, but I was only had somebody wanted me to. Do you think that there's generational shifts happening, like with your daughter, who I continue to hear wonderful things about?
Thank you.
Do you think it's different now? Do you think that the generation coming up is a little bit less likely to fold into expectations or perceived expectations of how and what and whom they're supposed to be?
I think it's an and both. I see this new generation as very witty and pithy and technology centric, very curious for understanding, for self-understanding. I don't think they are stereotyping here, but with regard to order and do it because I say do it, I don't think that's going to fly the way it once did. So I believe we have had a shift. And I believe with that shift, that the younger generations will continue to search for meaning. I believe they are big time searchers of meaning. And I believe they would meet us, like us baby boomers, in the advocate place as well. We were advocates back in the 60s and 70s, and I see a lot of advocacy work around inclusion happening today.
And perhaps that advocacy work is one of these shared goals, like let's work together towards this goal as opposed to follow me as an individual.
Yeah.
A goal is an inviting and a shared and an inspirational goal for us to move towards together.
Especially if that leader creates that meaning and purpose, and incorporating the team's meaning and purpose, getting them to see their vision in his or her vision.
And just on the generational theme, just another question. Do you think that your daughter's generation is more or less likely, more or less willing to jump into a conversation about meaning, perhaps a conversation about spirituality, even religion? Or is that something that they're more open to get into? Or perhaps it's, oh, that's our parents' stuff, we don't need to go there?
No, I'm laughing because my daughter would certainly leap into that conversation. However, it would be a conversation where she would want to be heard and understood, I believe, first.
Mm-hmm.
Because she has her beliefs and she has strong beliefs and she's not afraid or apprehensive to express herself. She was raised to be expressive, and as she's gotten older, she's decided to continue to be so.
Nice.
I see a lot of folks wanting to be heard, not necessarily wanting to hear.
And is that a welcome change? Is that a problem? Is that something that becomes difficult for leaders and organizations to manage because people want to be heard as opposed to that they want to roll up their sleeves and get things done? What do we do with that?
I believe that too much of any one thing is too much. So as a speaker, too much lecture, too much PowerPoint, too many activities, there needs to be balance. And I believe that if that leader creates that empowering environment, that's going to create two-way conversation where both sides would want to open up and share more of themselves. I believe that's the trend I've seen. But I believe the leader has to be the one who starts and goes first and is vulnerable to share thoughts about direction, thoughts about professional development and growth, and perhaps where they fall short, asking for feedback. The leader who does that is going to create a nonstop communication chain, because what leader asks team members for? Praise and polish and possibilities. Praise what he's or she's doing well, polish what they're not doing well, and possibilities, examples for them to use to do it better going forward. But I would not want to shut them down, but I would want to create a space where we both are looking to honor each other's generation.
And I'm just reflecting, there's so much in what you just said. And so the leader has an opportunity to shift a conversation that way. And when I hear you describe this behavior, what comes up for me is that is leadership. When anyone in the room begins that conversation and leans in that way, that's leadership, right? It doesn't need to be the person with the title or the person with the, back in the day, the office, the gold watch, the whatever the symbol would have been.
Yes.
The parking spot. Now that's insane to think of it that way. But
Wow, you're right. You're right.
but that's leadership behavior, right? To begin that conversation is to invite people into that space, is to bring people together, is to help all of us move forward. Is that how you see that?
I do. I do. I liken it to, I share this model when I do diversity, equity, inclusion. It's called the CAR model. And I ask people to think about parts of the car. I'm sorry, not parts of the car. They're personal items that they bring to the front seat, the back seat, and the trunk. Front seat would be sunglasses, your cell phone. Back seat, maybe your coat, umbrella. Trunk, emergency items, extra pair of sneakers, golf clubs, whatever. And I believe that those items that are front seat for us are extremely important. That's why they're in the front seat. Our sunglasses, change, water. I believe backseat items are not as important, but they need to be able to be reached. Hence, coat, map, books, or briefcase, map. What map? And our trunk, again, emergency. We take that personal items that we put in the car, replace them with elements of diversity like gender, sexual orientation, age, thinking style, race, and find out what's significant, which would be front seat. And we're able to have front seat conversations. And if you are in my front seat as my boss, you're getting to know me. And I rest assured, I'm getting to know you as well. Physical ability is in my front seat. Neurodiversity is in my front seat. I mentioned to you, I have a son who is nonverbal. I'm 62 years old. Age is in my front seat. Race is in my front seat. So to get to know me is to have front seat conversations if you were the leader. And Andrew, in my 14 years of corporate, I only had one leader that got in my front seat, and I was in hers. And I worked for that organization for 3 years. So 11 years out of 14, I did not have the compelling, strong, authentic, vulnerable relationship with my managers.
So when you say that leader got into your front seat, meaning you could comfortably sit side by side and relate to one another around those things that were most important to you?
Yes, absolutely. And even in everyday conversation, not editing our thoughts. I'm truly wanting to get to know me by opening up herself for me to get to know her. Andrew, she knew me so well that she knew I loved boxing. So when a boxing match was coming on HBO or Showtime or one of those channels, she would let me know, fight tonight, fight on Friday, fight on Saturday, because me. And she didn't pay extra money. That wasn't taking money from the organization or enhancing or increasing her budget. She just got to know me. And she said that one day that I would be a speaker and consultant, that corporate, I would get too bored with corporate. And she's right. Well, I had to spread my wings.
I love that and that metaphor. And for some of the ideas that are kicked around in this podcast around spirituality, for some people, their spirituality could be front and center, could be, where the fuzzy dice are in the rearview mirror. They're so
yes.
Or it could be that it's just not relevant. And I mean, what I have found is, and I'd love to hear your experience with this, what I found is that sometimes I'm not even aware of what's in my front seat and what's not until I encounter another person, for example, who I'm speaking with someone and all of a sudden they're very out there with their own religious beliefs. And not that I have a problem with that, but it surprises me. And all of a sudden for me, it's like, well, wait a minute. I'm just recognizing that may be in the backseat today. And I don't know that I could be in the front seat together with that person on that issue. But I also recognize, well, no, that's where they are with that. If I'm curious and I'm open, let me slide in next to you. I have some questions for sure. But, or even something, for example, like disability or sometimes sexual orientation or things that I may not think about until someone shows up or my son shows up and his girlfriend's a different race or is disabled in some visual way that I could tell. I may or may not be able to tell. And all of a sudden, that dimension of diversity is somewhere in my car and I didn't even realize it.
Yeah. Andrew, we all have maps, but our maps cannot be everyone's territory. So it's listening and choosing whether you want to listen even more. I think choice is so important. I like to say when we're young, we look a lot like our parents. But when we get older, we look a lot like our choices. And hopefully we'll make the right choice and be accountable and responsible for our behaviors and actions.
Hmm. Well, and as we get older, sometimes we look like our parents' choices.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Mm-hmm.
If I believe if you want to create that environment of trust and authenticity, you have to live what you give. You have to live it. And people are very learned these days, and they have shorter attention spans. And there's distance sometimes. So you're not going to have as much access as you always wanted to, as you had in the past. Access is not the same. There's too much going on, too much technology, people going from meeting to meeting to meeting. And like we said earlier, pretty soon, businesses aren't going to have addresses because everyone's working remotely.
So say more about access and what can leaders do? What can any of us do in an organizational setting to promote access? And when I hear access, I think the word that comes up for me is attention or space or holding space. What can we do given the shift towards remote work, et cetera? What can we do to promote and drive access where, just practically speaking, it's just not as available, or maybe it is?
I think about the energy that many display when it comes to social media. They're going to make sure they're TikToking, they're going to make sure they're Instagramming, Facebooking, linking in. You name the platform. But there's a certain energy around that. I believe a similar energy should be held by leaders in wanting to connect with, make time for, so whether it's phone, whether it's a Zoom, whether it's Teams, whether it's an email, whether it's a text. There are a number of lanes to that person's mindset and heart set.
Mm-hmm.
We should consider having purposeful, very intentional energy to connect with people in myriad ways, since we no longer have to get up and walk down the hall to the other person's office like we once had. I'm saying use a variety of tools when you can't see that person face to face.
Great. And I love that you're talking about this theme of connection. That's been a theme in the early episodes of this podcast about connection. In fact, for some, as I've heard it described to me, that's really what the spirituality piece is all about. But so tell me about some of the myriad of ways, or tell me about some of the technologies, which may have nothing to do with physical technology, that promote our connecting with one another.
For me, many of the people that I've connected with professionally has been done via books, articles, spending quality time with them in the evening or during lunch. Again, I said it earlier, the tool of just listening and learning and not wanting to be right or not into a right fight. A right fight is fighting to be right. And words, my love language is touch and words of understanding, words of appreciation. I love those types of conversations where I do get to know what's in your front seat. I do get to know what's important to you. I get to know the problem you solve and help you solve that problem. But it's getting to know you and not being afraid of being vulnerable and sharing what I don't know.
Continue to be that man on the bus.
Yeah, because that's the way we were when we were young. I just want to know. I just want to understand so I can be a better person. And if I don't know, Andrew, I'm a CEO of my own company. If I don't know the answer, it's not going to crush our brand. I just don't know the answer, but I'll get it for you. I don't think leading is a beauty contest. You're going to get dirty if you choose to really get to know your people in an authentic way, and for me, in a spiritual way, because I believe there's something that's out there that's bigger than us. I can't smell it. I can't touch it. I can feel it. I feel it and it drives me.
So when you talk about getting to know people in a spiritual way, does that mean something like, I don't want to put words in, but something like just probing, pursuing, exploring that beyond, exploring that. I mean, we're getting into this other realm here, but it's practical and it's important and it's real. So I'd love to hear you describe what that is. If you're talking about knowing somebody in a spiritual way, does that mean in the deeper, less physical, I'm going to be quiet now and let you know.
For me, it's possibility thinking. It's law of attraction. Is the belief that there's something out there that's bigger. And having those conversations where I just want to understand, even as a speaker, as a coach, as an author, just because I understand your perspective doesn't mean I agree, but at least I understand where you're coming from. That will help me be a better leader and will help our professional relationship be better, be one that's built around trust.
And so I hear a lot of practicality in what you're talking about. A lot of, so we will work better together if we know each other in this way, or if we've had this type of conversation.
I believe so. I believe so. I want to be able to come to work and bring the man, the father, the fantasy football guy, the Eagles guy, the writer. I want to be able to bring all of me. I didn't always feel like that when I was in corporate. I guess some people call it code switching or covering. I did what I thought I needed to do to be safe and to fit in. But in a way, that's trick-or-treating every day, not just on October 31st. You're putting that mask on. I want to create an environment where people feel free to be the best versions of themselves and not move into what I call the impropriety threshold for authentic expression. Every organization has their corporate values and norms and mores. And if your level of authentic expression is in violation of those corporate norms and values and mores, then you're into the impropriety threshold for authentic communication. You could be an authentic jerk, an authentic narcissist. The threshold's not going to protect you there. But outside of that, I want to encourage people to bring the best versions of themselves every day. I believe authenticity is a matter of more or less, not either or. Either you're more authentic and less authentic, given the situation. And for the folks who would definitely believe in spirituality or spiritual leadership, I think that expression will be enhanced with the lack of fear and community and empowerment.
Do you think that speaking with colleagues, whether it's leadership levels down, forget levels, just speaking with someone at work and really doing our best to understand who they are, what motivates them, is a spiritual exercise?
I think it's a number of exercises. It's enhancing communication.
Okay.
It can be communication exercise. It can be an inclusion exercise. It can be a spiritual exercise. It could be a peaceful exercise. It's wanting to understand what makes you tick, what you believe in. And I've always been open to learning.
Right.
And truly wanting to understand why that element of diversity is in your front seat, but also wanting to understand why it's in your trunk, because our life experiences are different. So we may have those elements in similar places, but we may not, and that's okay. Just let's talk about it. Why do you think about race? Why don't I think about gender? Why don't I think about sexual orientation? Why do I think about religion and spirituality all the time? I think it's a conversation. It's an exercise that could satisfy or bring to fruition a number of ideas related to effective communication and relationship.
Yeah, when I hear you talk about this, what I'm recognizing is that the open conversation is the relationship, right? I've heard people say that the conversation is the relationship. The conversation is the opportunity, not the desired outcome, not the conversation creates the safety.
Yes.
The curiosity and openness creates the safety and creates.
Yes. You're making deposits. You're making deposits when it's time to withdraw. The bank's open because you made a number of deposits, or the relationship is open.
And the banker will take your call.
That's why I say leaders lead first. Share what's in your front seat before you ask what's in their front seat. You be the vulnerable one. You take the risk. And see that as not as risky a task as you thought.
Yeah, and to the extent that leaders, and again, that could be anyone at any level, to the extent that leaders feel uncomfortable, afraid to do that, that's our work to do. That's my work to do if I feel like I'm holding back. Perhaps there's something in that paradigm that has to do with spirituality in some way. Perhaps there isn't, but I think that's the opportunity, right? It's the race to vulnerability
Yes.
in the relationship.
Yes. And I spend a lot of time just being still, whether it's meditating or just eyes closed, just laying down, just thinking things into fruition, seeing it happening, changing the story. When something happens to us, we create a story, and that story is typically negative. It's getting rid of the story, staying in the moment, and believing that you're going to be okay. And I do that a lot, Andrew. I do it a lot. And I learned about it doing that in college. Our football coach would always tell us to do some meditating or visualizing before the game or before practice. And I've been doing it for a long time.
And did that visualization at the time, and by the way, I knew that the Eagles would come up in this conversation, and I knew that your wonderful experience with your champion football team would come into play. Was that meditation visualization about performance? Was it about imagine yourself making this play or responding in a certain way? Or was it something less specifically performance-based than that? I'm curious.
Many times it was performance-based, professional or personal. And it's being still and seeing myself doing what I want to do correctly. Even when I went skydiving, I saw myself reluctantly jumping, but I did see myself jumping and landing safely, even though I was overwhelmed by the 15,000 feet in the air I was about to jump into. But it's performance and it's living.
It's participation.
Yeah, yes, that's a great term. It's participation. It's living, not existing. It's participation. And believing, not thinking, believing that things are going to turn out okay.
It's such a beautiful example of deliberately and purposefully changing my point of view.
Yeah. And as the author and leader that I am, and I'm standing on stages and platforms, sharing my truths and my opinions, I have to live what I give. I have to. Then I'd be a hypocrite. And that's one of the reasons why I went skydiving. My number one fear is heights. I said, jump in.
And what was your experience with that?
Probably the most afraid to do something I've been in my entire life. That was really living what I give. I'm like, nope, got to do it. You got to do it. I didn't tell a lot of people. And I remember the date, August 18th, 2018, 8/18/18. And it's ironic that I was raised as a gentleman, because when we were getting on the plane, I let everyone on first. I was the last one to get on, last one on, first one off.
First one on. Okay.
It's a funny story, but it was a story around belief, around faith, around law of attraction, because I've been telling people for years I was going to do it, and finally someone held my feet to the fire. Enough of that talk.
And was it a positive experience?
Absolutely. That turned into another metaphor for life. I told my mentor that I did it, and I thought that she was going to be as ecstatic as I was. And she said, no, you do crazy things all the time, my friend. But in your role as a leader, you can teach people how to jump off the plane every day, jump into starting their own company, jump into writing that book, jump into rebranding their organization, just jump into having that challenging conversation that you put on hold for years. Teach them how to jump every day. The bucket list is a wait list, just waiting to do something. Do it, jump every day.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for jumping into this conversation with me. I appreciate it. And let me ask you to share with whoever may be listening, what's the best way to reach you if someone wanted to continue this conversation, and what should they be reaching you about other than just all this wisdom you have to share?
Two ways. Website, www.drjamessmithjr.com. That's Dr. James Smith Jr. Or you can go to www.openness.com. That's openness.com. or social media, Dr. James Smith Jr. Please reach out to discuss issues of presentation skills, authenticity, and leadership, but primarily authenticity and presentation skills, how to make lights out presentations, how to be compelling, life-changing, game-changing, and so forth. So Dr. James Smith Jr., social media, LinkedIn as well, and website, drjamesmithjr.com.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for turning the lights on so brightly in this conversation. I appreciate that and look forward to continuing the conversation with you, as always.
Thank you for the opportunity, Andrew. I really, really, really appreciate it. You take care.
Yep. Thank you, James.
Thank you for listening to Spirituality in Leadership. If you want to access this wealth of knowledge and insight on a regular basis, please subscribe to the show. Join the network of leaders who want to do and be better. You can go to the site spiritualityinleadership.com or your preferred podcast platform to catch all the episodes and learn more. Until next time, take good care of yourself.